Coach, could you start off with a brief little statement?
Yep, glad to be back home. Assuming we're going to have a great crowd, and we've obviously been away from playing in our own building for 2 games, and the last few home games have certainly been entertaining through 40 minutes. Although we'd like a different outcome for sure, and 2 teams that are coming into the game both hungry for a win.
You have lost 3 straight home games. I mean, they've been to South Carolina's playing pretty well. They've been close to pretty good teams. Do you still feel that you guys have a good home court advantage? And what are you expecting from the crowd on Saturday?
I think we have a great home court advantage, Bob. I think it's one of the best in the country. I'm assuming, just with the sellout and stuff, that we'll have an incredible environment again. I mean, really, in my eyes, every game has been a great crowd.
The last 2 games are really the first time all year where you haven't said your team's played harder than the opponent. Just kind of how do you handle that going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things, Nate. Number one, because I just looked it up, 8 of 14 SEC teams since Saturday, that's Saturday, February 8th, have lost by double digits. So if 8 out of 14 have done it, and then, again, I prepared for that question, Nate. Wednesday, Florida beat Texas A&M by 17 at A&M. South Carolina won at Georgia by 16. Tuesday, the night that we lost, Ole Miss beat Mississippi State by 25. And then you go back to that Saturday, Kentucky wins by 14. South Carolina beat Texas A&M by 20. Ole Miss beat Florida by 17. And so I only bring that up because, I do think that with these games coming at you, travel can affect you. And, it's going to happen throughout, 30 games. I mean, in the NBA, out of the 82 games, a lot of people thought anywhere from 7 to 10 games your team just wasn't going to have it. And in college, what I found is great teams don't have it 1 out of 30 nights. Great teams and teams that are pretty good usually have it 2 or 3 times. And then average teams have it 4 times. So, look, we did not play well at Tennessee at all. I didn't think we played well at Missouri at times, but we're still right there where we could win the game, even though we didn't play very well. So, we've played it poorly over a stretch here, really of the last 2 games, because we know how good Auburn is. Auburn's got 2 losses or whatever. So they're good, and so LSU's good. So it's not like this has been something that's, we haven't won a lot of games of late, but we've sure competed, and we haven't played very good the last 2 games.
Since Tennessee, I guess what's kind of been your challenge or your message to the guys in hopes of getting this thing back on track?
Yeah, really nothing, Scotty, because we didn't do anything yesterday. So there's not much to say when nobody's talking on the plane really. So as soon as I leave this group, it will be the first time I address the team. It's a good question. A lot of times it's kind of spur of the moment, but we'll watch film of preparation for Mississippi State. Probably the first time all year that I do not show them anything from Tennessee. We don't have time for that right now because of taking off yesterday, and we'll get right into Mississippi State and just focus on trying to play better against them.
Hey, Eric, you got an update on Isaiah. You said you might know something more Thursday.
Yeah, I have not talked to Mark today. It's still, Mark is, pretty on top of it. Normally he would text me if there was anything of note. He actually texts sometimes when there's nothing of note, just to be overly good communicator that he is. I haven't heard anything, so to me it's still out indefinitely. He's not practicing. He's not, he hasn't jogged with us. He hasn't done a walkthrough with us. We don't even see him, to be honest. He's been doing rehab. Even yesterday in study hall, he got all his academic stuff done, and he was with Mark again doing something.
Still a ways off, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, unless I can't imagine we have anything changing over the next 4 days or 5 days or whatever.
Home thing, because you guys, if you take the totality of the season, you have been a pretty good home team. Do you just feel like you need some home cooking after a couple of tough road losses?
I mean, I don't. You could go into any school or university or program, and obviously, there's a reason that home court, comfortable with the arena and stuff like that. You're not traveling, but having said that, as we've seen in this league, that certainly doesn't mean that it's a win. I mean, we're playing against a team that I thought beat us last game at their place. A really talented team, a long team. But yeah, we'd certainly rather be at home than be on the road.
And then the last two, I think you've had 10 games with 22 or more fouls. The last two games, you had 26 and 32 of the most fouls. Of course, one was an overtime game. But you guys have been so good on defense. What do you think's happened here recently? Is it fatigue, or what do you think's going on? What do you have to do to correct that?
Well, I think one, our fouling. There's so many things with no excuses, but you ask a question, and with Isaiah, he's not a high foul guy, and so you take his 32 minutes out, and so he's not a high foul guy, right? And then you're putting somebody in who maybe is a high foul guy. And so we have some players that are foul prone, whether they play in our system or a pass system. They're high foul guys per minute. And, all we can do, Bob, is continue to point it out to the guys, to show the fouls on film. Fouling against Mississippi State was a concern last game. We went back and, the natural thing is, are they hurting us in pick and rolls or post-ups? They just hurt us off us committing fouls that had nothing to do with the play. So I'm sure there's people sitting at home watching and saying, how do you make that foul? I'm saying the same thing during the game. We have to get better, without fouling. But there is a little bit of give and take, too. And right now we lead the nation in defending the three ball, which is great. I mean, every high schools, AAU, NBA, college, they're all talking about analytics and shoot the three. That's the way to win. And so we came into this season with, we're not a tall team. What can we be great at? Well, we know we can be great at defending the three. And those numbers, to be number one in the country, is hard in any category. And arguably, the three-point shot's the biggest thing that can change games. And that's probably, quite honestly, why we've been in a lot of games all year. Because we have not let teams annihilate us from three. And usually these large margins, and you're on the wrong end or you're on the right end, it's usually the three-point thing can be the difference maker. Having said that, if I'm close to you and you're a three-point shooter, you might foul a little bit more too. You know what I mean? Just because if you're playing like Virginia, where you're playing a pack line defense and you got the lane compact, you're probably not going to foul as much. So a little bit of it's philosophical too, to take away the three, because we know we're not going to be a great in the paint defensive team just based on lack of strength and lack of size. So, but the fouling, the unnecessary fouls have got to continue to be pointed out to our group to continue to get better in that area.
Coach, what were some of the pros and cons from the first matchup with Mississippi State that you can use in this game?
Oh boy, I mean, I have a bunch of cons that I can certainly list for you. I mean, I don't know how much time you have, or Reggie Perry. We can start with Perry's 15 free throws attempted. His 26 points and 13 rebounds is a concern. Mississippi State taking 31 free throws attempted, a concern. Mississippi State being plus 10 on the glass, a concern. Mississippi State having 11 offensive rebounds, a concern. Mississippi State having 4 players in double digits, a concern. Is that enough?
I guess both, because you sat both Mason and Jalen a lot in the second half. Just what do you need to do to get them back to playing the way they were earlier in the year?
Yeah, I think I really believe that as each individual player, as a team, as a coaching staff, like whatever your roster is for that particular game, you got to respect the defense, how they're playing you. Each game's going to have its own identity because different teams have different styles. They have different players that are going to guard different people. We've seen some teams put a big man on Jimmy Witt. We've seen some teams put a point guard on Jimmy Witt. Without Isaiah, Mason's being defended differently in the last two games. And so we've got to continue to help him understand, to see exactly what the defense is doing. We got to work to get open more. It's hard when a defense is focused on you, and so those are all things that we got to continue to get better at. And if a defense converges on you, we might have to have more assists than we've had last game as a group. I think, we had a low volume of assists last game, but a lot of that's also because we had players shoot 2 for 12 or 1 for 10. So it's hard to get an assist if the ball's not going in the basket too.
You mentioned the other day that Isaiah Joe, without him, you've had to add some plays and stuff. Since then, how much more have you added, or is it really just getting your guys to execute better?
Yeah, Nikki, I think it's, not to oversimplify, but like in the NBA, a lot of coaches say this is a make or miss league. We had plenty of open looks the other night, and the ball didn't go in. And we've got to make open shots, and so does Mississippi State, and so will Florida and Gainesville next week. So it's we want to continue to be a top 20 defensive team. I think right now we are 18th in the nation in steals. We're top 10 in turnover margin. So a lot of good things too, but we've got to start making shots. We can't, as a team, just rely on Mason to have 35. That's other players have to make open shots.
The staff has had to face a team for the second time in the season. How do you approach it the same or differently than the first time? And is it more information for the players, less information, or maybe more work for you guys?
No, I think that when you play a team for the second time, hopefully you use it to your advantage through preparation. We certainly don't look at it as a negative at all. I look at it as a huge positive. It's our job to point out to the players. Normally when we do our prep film, you use their last 2 or 3, 4 or 5 games. You leave the games, that are 6, 7 games out. You don't refer to those at all. When we play a team for the second time, we refer to that game a lot in individual matchups and certain schemes on both sides of the basketball. So to me as a coach, hopefully all the assistants feel this way. Hopefully the players feel this way. Hopefully now it becomes a little bit more of a chess match. Certainly in whether it's the NBA D-League or the NBA, and you get into a playoff situation, you play a team for 7 games, you can have a little bit more impact as a staff with each game that goes on, you hope.
Besides, obviously, his size, what makes Reggie Perry such a difficult matchup?
Yeah, I think his size, I think he's improved as a perimeter shooter as well. Really good reaction to the ball. But it was, we've had trouble with whether it's Samuels at TCU or, whoever. We've Fulkerson at Tennessee. We've struggled with interior play.
The last few games, Adrio's given you a little bit of a lift from the perimeter. When he does that, how does that benefit spacing, and might you want him to take a few more perimeter jumpers?
We're shocked that he's one of our best perimeter shooters, but if you look at the percentages, number one, it's a really good thing for him from an individual player development standpoint that he's improved that much. Having said that, you know, we should have some other guys that have percentages, you know, that are better than what we have. But he has been a guy that's made perimeter shots at a shockingly good, you know, like he's one of those guys that actually in a game will shoot better. But I do think he's shooting the right amount. I don't think that we want to encourage him to shoot more than what he's doing. I think he's taking good, high-quality shots. He's got a low volume of three-point attempts, but I also think that's why he's got a really effective percentage, is because he's taking them with his feet set. So we're not going to, you know, try to change that, although we do recognize that he has, you know, made more perimeter shots than we thought coming into the season. That's due to his work ethic. But really, right now, what we need from Adrio is defensive rebounding. That's what we need, plain and simple. We need our power forward and our center to go get us 7, 8, 9 defensive rebounds. That's what this team needs.
Eric, with Macy, you know, he became the first Razorback to ever have 3 straight 30-point games. And like you said, he's obviously getting a ton of attention. But the last 2 games, his shooting's down, his turnovers are up a little bit. I'm sure he's frustrated. How do you handle that with him? And just how do you think he'll respond?
Yeah, I mean, we had Mason and I had a long talk leading in the night before the last game, just about, you know, like the scouting report. It's changed, you know, when you have 3 games like that. And so, you know, you just got to have patience. You got to read the defense. You got to read how they're playing you. You know, like if a team overplays you a little bit more, is a little bit more aggressive, then maybe you got to work to get backdoor cuts. And so you just got to kind of change your game a little bit. But, you know, look, I mean, this is a learning experience, you know what I mean, for a player to be the focal point of the opposing defense. It's different, you know what I mean? You know, and every coach has a different philosophy on how they approach game plans, you know. And so, I mean, I watched the entire Georgia Tech-Louisville game last night. Louisville has an incredible player. I think he scored 2 baskets, you know. Georgia Tech did a good job on him. And the guy's one of the best players in the nation. And, you know, he sat for long stretches, and Coach Mack, you know, tried to help him with get some play calls, and for whatever reason, you know, he didn't have a good scoring night. But that's just stuff. That stuff happens every night, you know, with guys.
You know, Reggie Perry, 14 out of 15 free throws last time. I know a lot of this is because he's this monster inside, but is there a way to defend him without putting him on the line that much, or how do you maybe cut down on that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I did today, Bob, is I wanted to see all the fouls that we committed on him and their entire team. And I polled our staff, you know, and said, how do you think he got fouled? Do you think it was us switching on the pick and roll? Do you think it was straight post-ups? The fouls we committed were our 4 and 5 men fouling him on non-scoring type plays. So we got to get better. We got to get better at not fouling people when they're not in scoring area. So, yeah, if he gets off to a great start and we're guarding him with the same people as last time, then maybe Jamario goes in. I don't know. Don't say it's going to happen, but, you know, maybe Ethan gets more minutes on him. Scylla actually did a really good job on him, although you would think from a height standpoint, but Scylla got underneath him instead of playing upright. And I thought that underneath defense of kind of getting underneath the ball and I thought that was probably as effective as anybody. But look, he's going to score on Saturday. Let everybody know right now, like Reggie Perry is going to score. It's a matter of, and he's going to rebound. So it's a matter of how much can we get that down. That's it.